Facebook, LinkedIn, Facebook, and everybody. We're so glad you're here today at Groundbreaking Vision. I'm Harriet Gibbe, and I'm your host and producer of Groundbreaking Vision. This is a podcast about breaking through the white noise of culture. We'll be talking to people about their businesses and their ideas that are changing life as we know it, transforming our lives mentally, physically, socially, and with consciousness and mindfulness. I'm so excited today to be talking about the culture of mental health. My guest today is Julie Hirsch. Julie and I have known each other for many years. We met working out at Cooper Fitness, and we have been through several passages of life together. She's written a book called Struck by Living, which is helping to break the taboo around mental health issues. And this is a really important show to me, as it is to so many other people. One of the reasons I called Julie and asked her to come on the show is because of the recent suicides of Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain. And there have been some other suicides in Dallas of people that we all know and love. The suicide rates and the depression rates are rising dramatically right now. I don't want to quote statistics because they change so frequently. But we're going to do our part to let you know that it's a good thing to talk about your feelings and mental health issues. It improves the culture you live in. It improves yourself socially, physically, emotionally, mentally. So let me introduce my friend and guest, Julie Hirsch.
Great. Thank you so much, Harriet. It's really great to be here today, and I'm looking forward to talking about this. I know it's a hard topic to discuss.
Yes, it is.
But I really think there's some hope. I've seen lots of people who have come out of depression, are living full and happy lives. I consider myself one of them.
Yes.
And so I look forward to talking to you about it. I think hopefully people will be able to get something out of the talk today that gives them inspiration to go through their daily lives. Because even though these suicides that are so tragic have happened in the last week, I really think wellness, as you and I have discussed, is a lot about doing positive things on a daily basis to try to keep your life on track.
Absolutely. So let's start with the film clip that you gave.
All right, great.
Compliments of the Mental Health Channel.
Yeah.
So let's go to that right now. It tells a lot about your story that'll bring us up to date.
Okay, great. I'm Julie Hirsch. I'm an author and a speaker. I wrote a book called Struck by Living, and it's about my personal story with clinical depression. We are going to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we're going to hike up to the point where I attempted suicide in 2001. I'm going with my son Daniel, who's 20 years old. I haven't really talked to him too much about this story. He knows about it, of course, because he's seen me write the book and he knows I give speeches about this, but we've never talked personally about this story. And so this will be a good time for us to do it.
I do and don't want to know more about her struggles because as a family member and my own mental well-being, I do want to know, but I don't want to know because it's disturbing stuff and she's my mom and I'd like to think that she wants to be around my life permanently.
The reason I like it here so much is it's quiet, it's green. For me, I feel like green is really a healing color. I love the sound of the water at night when I'm sleeping. I love the light through the aspen leaves, especially in the late afternoon. And it's a great place for me to write and reconnect with my family. I'm going with Daniel on this so that he can have a broader awareness for himself. Is telling Daniel my story more difficult than publishing the book? I think it is harder. If my own son rejects me because of this information, sure, that would hurt. You want to drive? There was about 9 months that I went through a very, very severe depression. I would lose weight I couldn't sleep, and I just lost my desire to do any of the things that I love to do. And I really thought if I returned to Santa Fe that maybe something would shift. And I got here and I felt exactly the same way.
Is this the exact path you took in 2001?
Yeah, pretty much. We're retracing the steps of what I did that day. It was a different type of day. It looked totally different. Gray skies, rainy, cold. I actually wrote in my journal that I was looking forward to taking a hike so that if they found the body, they would think that it was an accident. I have a great marriage, 2 healthy kids. We're financially set. It has nothing to do with how much that you have. Depression is definitely an equal opportunity disease.
So how would you act if I were diagnosed with it?
As long as you manage it, it's really not that big of a deal. So if you pay attention to things like sleep, exercise, nutrition, and stress management, meditation is something that I've actually added fairly recently. It's remarkable how much calmer I am and how much more I can keep life in perspective. Depression was a numbness. It was a disconnection. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel joy or anger or pain. I felt like I was a ghost in my body.
I remember most of what was going on at that time, but there was never like a point where I was like, this is a big deal. Like my mom could literally die tomorrow if she wanted to.
At the point that I was walking up the mountain, there was just a compulsion to die. I told myself things like, you don't deserve to be here. You don't deserve to be here. Your kids would be better off. They can have another mother. They can have somebody better. You're never going to get better. You're never going to get better. You're never going to get better. I remember standing at the edge and looking down and thinking, this isn't going to work. I'm going to bounce off this rock, and then I'll end up paralyzed and depressed. But if I were paralyzed, then I wouldn't be able to kill myself.
The thought that she was going to leave us forever, that she didn't love us, looking back, if she had succeeded, that would have been probably the hardest pill to swallow.
I think the most difficult question that anybody can ask someone who's attempted suicide is, why didn't you love me enough? I hope I can do a good enough job of explaining that this is a disease and it has nothing to do with my love for him. And the reality is, now that I'm managing my depression, I have a great life, and most of my life has been a great life, except for this very small period of time. So this is it. I just didn't want you to feel like you wanted to reject me because you didn't want to be anything like me because of this disease.
That thought's never crossed my mind. I would love to be like you when I'm older. I'm really proud that you've been able to, overcome this and dedicate your life to this cause.
I'm just glad I didn't miss it.
Me too.
If I had completed that suicide, I would have missed the last 14 years, which have really been some of the best years of my life. I've gotten to see my kids grow up into beautiful people. I've gotten to travel all over the world. So for the people who may be hopeless, your life may have that potential as well, but you have to stick around long enough to find out.
Every time I watch watch this, I am moved to
Yeah.
tears, so I can only imagine.
It
how you
is.
feel.
It is. It's hard to watch in a lot of ways, but beautiful in a lot of ways too. I just was back to our place up in New Mexico this weekend, and my son was there. I think we filmed this 4 years ago, and I remember what touched me most about this whole thing was when he said, "No, I want to grow up to be just like you." Although they cut my favorite part because it probably sounded too sarcastic. Because then he immediately said, "Except that suicide stuff, okay?" And they caught us laughing afterwards. But I just thought, you know, unfortunately, I think sometimes in the conversation, this humor element is missing. And we actually need to have a little humor because it's such a heavy and dark conversation otherwise that is hard to get through. So although I understand why, because not everybody has my sarcastic sense of humor, but I just thought that was so beautiful when he said, "Except that suicide stuff." Yeah, okay, Daniel, we'll make sure you're just like me, except for that. So.
And I love that because, as you and I mentioned in our previous conversations preparing for the show, humor is just so important.
It is.
And those of us that have faced suicide or the suicide of loved ones or been in that depressed state ourselves know there's some pretty funny stuff that happens.
It is.
And your humor gets
usually
very,
in
very sharpened.
Yeah, because when you're in it, it's hard to have a sense of humor about it. But when you can get away from it a little bit, it is amazing how, you know, I think there's people who experience similar things can connect and see the humor in it as well. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of us out there, actually.
Yes. I remember being in so much emotional pain one time. I was driving down the road running carpool, and I thought, now let's see, I can drive my car into this oncoming traffic and feel better than I feel right now. And that, looking back, that's so hysterically funny and illogical. Like, I'm going to feel better if I have a wreck.
Yeah.
But that's how my thinking was.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize I was depressed until I'd gone back and read it in my journal.
Yes.
That I'd had that thought, and I went, you know, girl, I think you're in trouble.
Yeah.
A
little bit, you know. Yeah, but it is amazing how the mind, if it's sort of left on its own to go in a negative cycle, can get into this repetitive negative thinking. And I think one of the things to stay well is really about catching it earlier in the cycle. And trying to redirect it. And sometimes people might need medication to help redirect it, but as you and I have frequently talked, a lot of it is about your daily life choices and self-care and how you approach the world. And those things incrementally add up into a healthier life or a more self-destructive life. So.
And I love seeing in the video your meditation.
Yes.
So you've started meditating, and you worked with John Kabat-Zinn recently.
I just went up for a week-long retreat with John Kabat-Zinn, and it wasn't the two of us personally, it was me and 200 other people. But just being in that space of his energy, though. It was really wonderful. And I've made a serious commitment to myself. I've always been really good about exercise. But since actually I started on Christmas Day of last Christmas, I said, you know what, I'm going to approach meditation as seriously as I do exercise and make sure I meditate every single day. And I've missed a couple of days, but I think I'm close to 300 days now consecutively. Yeah.
Nice.
And it doesn't have to be a lot. I sort of set myself a limit of meditating at least 8 minutes a day. Although my husband just showed me an article in the Wall Street Journal about competitive meditators. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to really talk about my streak. But what I think it helps me do is, and I don't know if this is for everybody or if it's just for me because of my genetics and upbringing, but I have a tendency to think negatively. And so instead of getting sucked down that rabbit hole, I really try to back up and say, okay, how can we look at this a little bit differently? And for whatever reason, meditation is helpful on putting on that mental break so that I'm not just, slipping down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. And yes, and it reminds me of the pieces. It's a practice.
Yes.
And the more you do it,
yes.
I don't know that it gets easier, but you get stronger.
Yeah,
as you
sure. It's
practice
just
and you
like
go to the next
anything
level and the
else.
next
It's
level.
your
Yeah.
voice, your body. I was singing on the way down here because I thought, oh, I'm going to have to interview, and it's early in the morning. And so to make sure my voice was ready, I was singing down the highway.
And singing is
Yeah,
also
yeah.
something that really lifts. It changes
does.
the chemicals of your body and
It
your
does.
brain, as does dancing.
Yeah.
And yoga. One of the things I have loved about yoga and my meditation and my yoga practice, they become kind of partners in my mental health. And I'll reach a place in yoga where it's something, you know, like you'll stretch as far as you can stretch, and you can't stretch any further, and just stay there and breathe. And your
Yes.
body will give you more space.
Yeah.
So
It is
So
amazing.
the practice of going as far as you can go and being okay with that,
Right.
and like be there and breathe, and then your body, your mind will give you more. It'll give you more space to go where you need to go next. So let's talk about some of these practices that
Sure.
you personally have started doing
Sure.
for your mental health, which adds to physical health and
Right,
those
right. So I kind of have 5 things that I try to focus on a continual basis. Sleep is number 1 important for me, and I think what I've learned over the past 15 years really focusing on this is that's important for a lot of people. So I try to figure out my normal, which my normal for me today is about 7 hours.
So is mine.
There you go. But it will be different for different people. So
Yeah.
some people can survive on a lot less, some need a lot more. But the trick is really finding your normal and being aware of when you're slipping
Yeah.
deeply outside of your normal. And for me, when I'm depressed, I actually go to no sleeping or very little sleep. And for me, that was kind of a novel concept when I first started understanding this, because I always thought, well, depressed people sleep all the time, and some do. But so
But
sleep.
for me, there's a manic piece,
Right,
so that I
right.
don't sleep at all. I'm really happy, and I'm like going.
Can be
and
like
it's
that,
great,
yeah.
And then there's the slump.
Or it can be manic worry,
Yeah.
so anxiety type stuff.
Yeah.
So sleep is number 1. Exercise, as I've said, I'm an avid runner still. Avidly getting slower by the day, but I'm still trying. I figure if maybe I can run till the point I'm 80, that maybe I'll win something, but not now. And then, and when I look back on my history of my serious depressive episodes, almost all of them have happened when I was injured and I couldn't run. And so I have to really be careful about, if that happens, to pick an alternate form of exercise. And then nutrition for me is, I'm saying that very broadly in terms of everything you take into your body. And so I'm not, vegan or gluten-free or anything like that. I just try to eat a balanced diet, but I'm attentive to that. I'm also attentive to, when I'm depressed, I tend to completely lose my appetite. And again, I always thought of depression as being, heavy, sleeping. And for me, my depression is a wired up, like I'll lose 10 pounds and not even notice that I've lost it. And at my side, you can't see on camera, but as we stand side by side, I'm tiny. So for me, 10 pounds is almost 10% of my body weight. So that's a lot to lose. And then stress management and social support. And stress management, I think, is really where it's very individual. I do meditation. That's a big thing for me. I also do psychotherapy when I feel like I'm either going to encounter a huge challenge, or when I'm feeling off. I'll call my psychotherapist and we'll set up a few sessions. But some people do it through art, some people do it through music. But the key is understanding you and what brings you relief and practicing it. And then finally, social support. And this is what I tend to do when I'm depressed, is I'll isolate. And I think this is a common factor of people who are depressed, because you just make yourself so busy, you think you're so important, you can't associate with your friends.
Well, you don't want to bum them out.
And you don't want to bum them out,
I don't want anyone to know how upset I am,
Yeah.
and how depressed I am,
Yeah.
because I don't want to burden them
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
And that's a red flag. I think.
Yeah, that is a red flag. So, but if you can think about social support in terms of, the Cooper Center for me has continued to be a long-term social center where I can always go back and I know, you know, on Mondays and Wednesdays, somebody's going to be there that I can run with and I can talk to. The Dallas Theater Center has also been a center of social support for me.
You're the president of the board of the
I'm
Dallas
chair of the
Theater.
board of the theater.
Don't know that.
Yeah, and
They won the Tony Award.
They won
last year
Tony
for
Award
Best
last-
Regional Theater.
Yes, they
Nice.
did. Yes, that was really fun. I got to go up and meet James Earl Jones backstage, which was really fun, and get to receive the award with Kevin Moriarty and Jeff Woodward, the artistic director and managing director of the theater, and Jeff Bragelin, who's president of the board. And so it was a blast. That was such a fun thing to do. My husband, Ken, and my daughter, Rachel, came with us, and it was, you know, we got all blitzed up, and it was really fun. Kevin Spacey actually hosted it, which is very bizarre thinking of everything that's happened this year.
Yeah.
It was right before, well, it was June before all the Me Too stuff started to happen. And so it's talk about change. Isn't that a wild thing that he
and
was
giving voice to
Yeah.
this thing that's been hidden for so long.
Yeah,
and that's,
absolutely.
you know, now people can speak up. And
Yeah.
some of those issues can be
Yeah.
depressing for years and years and
Yeah,
years.
and it's just interesting when you talk about change to think June a year ago, Kevin Spacey was hosting the Tony Awards, the pinnacle of respect and adulation, and then less than 6 months later, he was totally disgraced. And so it's an interesting world when you think about that, and life changes. I mean, that's probably our only guarantee is that life changes, and so we need to figure out how do we adapt to that, and how do we maintain our balance amidst all those changes. And I think it can be a really fun thing if you know, if you don't think, it's change, it's uncertainty. It is uncertain, but in a way, that's an adventure.
Yes.
And it could be a very positive thing as long as you understand there's going to be hard stuff along with the good stuff, and that's just life.
And that's life. And having the coping skills, and as you said, the social support to deal with that.
Exactly.
Because talking like you and I are talking right now makes such a difference.
It does.
And having a sense of belonging.
Yes.
And that isolation that you're alone, or I'm alone in my issues and my fears and my own personal drama. And by opening up and sharing it, we're creating a new world.
Yes.
We're breaking through the culture with, this is health.
Right.
This is connection.
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
Yeah.
And we're all moving forward together. Let's talk briefly about gratitude, journaling in your journaling gratitude and journaling positive thoughts, because these are real tools that people can use today. Besides meditation, exercise, nutrition, journaling, social support. But let's talk about journaling real briefly, because people can do that right now.
And we were talking about this earlier today. I think one of the things that's really interesting about journaling is I always had a tendency to just write down the negative things. And if you think about that, that's okay, because you need a space to release. But if you only write down the negative, then I think there's a tendency to just reinforce the negative. So I'm trying to remember when I started doing this. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. I started a gratitude list. And I know Oprah has been doing this for years, which is one of the reasons I kind of poo-pooed it, because I thought, it's just an Oprah thing. With no offense to Oprah, I think she's brilliant. But there actually has been a psychologist out of Marty Seligman out of University of Pennsylvania, who has been researching this for years. And what he has found is if people can write down, I think he says 3, I actually try to do 5, positive things that happen in your day. They need to be immediate. They need to be not general things like, I have a good family, but specific things like, I love the way my husband and I laughed this morning before we left the house, which we actually did laugh this morning, which is a good thing. And you write it down in your journal, and all of a sudden it starts to change your perspective. Just like we were talking about exercising your voice or your body, exercising your brain in a way that you force yourself to notice the positive gets your brain more in the habit of noticing the positive.
Yes.
And I think it can be a really powerful thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've noticed that so much for myself, and not only gratitude, but what difference did I make in the
Yes,
lives of
I like it because you have a little bit different, and I think I'm going to start doing that. I really like that. If you, how did you phrase it?
Just what value did I
Yeah,
create
what
today?
value did I
Like,
create?
Sometimes I'll connect with the child going by in a
Yeah.
stroller, and your eyes will lock, and the child will smile, and you're like, oh, it
Yeah,
was a moment.
yeah, and it doesn't have to
Connection.
be. It doesn't have to be huge. And I think that's one of the things we all get so hung up on, that, oh, I have to discover the cure for cancer. No, you know, if you make a child smile,
Make
if you,
somebody laugh.
yeah, if you make
Laugh
somebody
yourself.
laugh, if you notice the way the light hits a tree and the leaves in the tree, or the way the wind feels when it blows through. Those are all things to be grateful for as well, but most of the time we're rushing through so quickly and focusing on what do I got to do, what's wrong, that we don't let that joy in. And so if we can figure out, train our brains a little bit to say, oh, we're not going to be, you know, all blue sky, but let's let some joy in our lives, then it can be a really positive thing. We were talking about earlier today, one of the fun things that happened is I still actively journal. I've been actively journaling since the time I was, I think 8 years old. I completed a journal when I was up in New Mexico, and so I think it had covered about 6 months of time. And so I went back and reread my gratitude list for the last 6 months. And what was really fun about it is there were fun things and funny things that I had completely forgotten about, but it reinforced those positive things. And it did, and you know, if you had asked me before I did that, how has the last 6 months been, I think I would have told you it's been really hard. And there have been really hard things that have happened. But there's also been a lot of good. And so if you can just keep looking at the good, as John Kabat-Zinn said on the retreat, if you're still breathing, then there's more right with you than wrong with you, which I love that. I thought that was just such a great thing.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story.
I'm happy to be here.
Enjoyed our girl
Oh,
time.
I have too. It's been great to see you, Harriet. Oh, and you know what? I did want to, I noticed in the video it had the old cover. So we've gone through, because we keep on selling out of the copies. And then, so this is actually the 4th edition. And one of the things I didn't include in the original edition was a wellness list. And I didn't do it because I felt like I didn't want to be selling anything, and I'm really not. I just included it in this version because this is what works for me.
Yes.
And maybe it'll be an inspiration for others and help them.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at Groundbreaking Vision. I know you've gotten something that can help you get through today. Journal, laugh with a friend, give somebody a hug, go work out, move your body even if it's just for a couple of minutes. Sing with the radio when you're driving in the car, connect with your friends and family, and share your story. If you have a story that you feel needs to be told, we'd love to help you tell it. So reach out to us at Groundbreaking Vision, and thank you so much for being with us today. I love you.